So it's been a while since I've done a video, and mostly because life gets in the way. I don't have the 912 yet, so it's all taken a while, but everything's a little bit slower than usual. I don't know if it's the pandemic or what. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. There's been, for me, a huge increase. So it's been about 60 people have subscribed in the last month or so, and a lot of that's going to be down to being on the Porsche Cooled podcast. And it was really great to chat to Michael and about the 912, about the 996, and hopefully soon, once I get hold of my 912 and I've played about with it a little bit, I'll be able to go back on. And at the moment, hang on, let me just go around this bend. Let's see if I can. But at the moment, I don't have that car, so once I get that, hopefully I'll be able to chat to him again, and that'll be really great. I've really enjoyed the conversations that it's started with lots of different people, especially people who are starting on the journey of getting a 911 or getting a 912, buying a classic. I've loved every bit of it, and what I would really like to do is engage with more people. But back to this video. Firstly, so yes, thank you very much to everybody who subscribed. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, then please do. I would love that. There's someone in a Corsa VXR just trying to race me now, trying to undertake me just there. They can fuck off. No, pardon my French. Now, actually, that leads me on to a really good point, because one of the things that I've been talking to a few people about who say that they would like to get a 911, or they've got a 911 and they want to move on to the next thing, and they all talk about, well, you know, I want to get a GT car, I want to get you know, some real high performance, a turbo or something like that. Now, the thing that always occurs to me is that I do know somebody who has a 996 turbo, and what he said to me was that he found the power not particularly usable. So he said, you know, it was difficult to get enjoyment because you're always scared that you're gonna lose the back end, you're not gonna be able to control it, you're gonna crash into something. So he always really got the benefit of the power in a really controlled way. And he's not a track guy, so he won't go on the track. I'm not a track person. So when I talk about getting the maximum enjoyment, so the enjoyment, I get stress-free enjoyment out of this car, because one of the main things is that it wasn't a massive investment. It was money that I'd saved, but I knew that I wasn't spending so much money, unlike the 912, where I've spent so much money on it that if I lost that money, it would be a serious problem in our household. But with this car, I knew it wasn't such a huge investment that it would be horrific if I lost that money. If it broke down, and also I was able to use it, so if it got scratched in a car park or something like that, I'd be upset because it's my car and I care about it, but also it would mean that I wouldn't have that anxiety of leaving it in the car park or using it every day, or using it bad weather like today and every day for the autumn and winter. So it's guilt-free and stress-free enjoyment. But when it came to people talking to me about performance, now this car does 0 to 16 watt when it was new in about 5 seconds, and also I drive on the roads, I don't drive on tracks, and secondly I don't race people. So it's not, oh, someone's pulled up next to me and they're in a 991 or something, or they're in a 996 turbo, or they're in a GT car, then it doesn't matter, because when I drive it, I'm having my own enjoyment of driving this car. So there's a thing about having how much performance is enough that you can safely use on the road and derive some enjoyment out of it. Whereas the enjoyment that I get out of this car, and it makes a great noise, but it's actually quite sedate when you're just driving in traffic or going to the shops. I'm on a country lane, it's a long country lane, the speed limit's 60, I can accelerate hard up to 60 and really enjoy it. It's a straight line, so that's not a problem. I don't really push it through the windy roads because you really feel the weight of the car when you're going through the bends, and you're always thinking, am I going to lose the back end? And if you lose the back end, I think it's all over at those speeds. You know, if you're doing 60 around a bend on a country lane where there's no room for error. So, you know, you can't just go, I'll twitch it and I'll give the steering a jab and keep my foot in and I'll pull it back in. No, because there's a curb. And on the other side of the curb is a load of trees. So, you know, you've got to do it safely. But for me, I get all of that enjoyment. I enjoy the acceleration, the rawness of this car. I get the reliability of it being a water-cooled car. I also get the stress-free enjoyment because it's a cheap car, relatively speaking. And I think if you were to go and buy something like this and go, oh, I want to move on to the next thing, you've got to think about why you're doing it. Because there's no drive for me to make this a concours car, because it's never ever going to be a concours car. It's got 151,500 miles on it. It's not, and it's shabby. So you could spend some money and make it really smart, but why would you? Because you're going to then add to that anxiety or create that anxiety. So anyway, that was my whole feeling on having the conversations that I've had with a few people. But then that leads me on to the next bit of the amount of people who really want one, but there's that whole, not buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse is a bit different. It's when you buy something and you can't really enjoy it because you know you've spent so much money. But it's more it's where you're not sure that's the car that you want. Now, a few people have contacted me and said, oh, I looked at this car and I looked at that. And a lot of people have been looking at, since the Porsche Cooled podcast, they've now gone and looked at some of my older videos from when I first got this car. And they're saying, wow, that's a bargain. I saw something for 7,000 or 8,000 or 9,000, but I didn't really pull the trigger on it because I thought it might be something wrong with it. And I've talked about, you know, when you start spending more money, that you think that you're going to reduce the risk of it being, you know, IMS failure or engine failure or suspension or gearbox failure. That stress doesn't go down with the more money that you spend. That stress stays constant. What happens is the stress of you spending more money goes up, and then the anxiety comes in about losing that money, so it takes away from the enjoyment. It's almost like a mathematical equation, which I don't know the answer to, by the way. So the thing that I would say is that if you're thinking about getting one and you see one and you think that ticks the boxes in terms of the type of car that I want, the condition that I want, and the amount of money that I want, and I've done all the basic checks, then I would say just go and buy it. Because if you're serious about buying a car, then I would say, yeah, just go and buy it. Because that way you're not stretching your budget over and over and over and over again, going, well, I'll get the next one, I'll get the next best one, I'll get the next best one, and before you know it, instead of buying the best 996 you can afford, you're buying the worst 997 you can afford, and then you've spent more money but created all the same anxiety, but with different problems like bore scoring or whatever it might be. So, you know, if you think about very quickly, sort of extrapolate to the end of that journey, then you think, well, hang on, I'll end up with a car that I'll have spent more money on and I'll get less enjoyment out of. Whereas with this one, I think anyway, that it was, okay, don't do it like I did. So I was between me saying I'm going to go and buy this car, or a 911, to actually going to see one, going to say I want that one, I didn't mean to say it like that. It was less than 24 hours. So, and I deliberately ignored all the warning signs about IMS bearings and things like that, because I thought I'll just talk myself out of it, and then I'll have gone through all this process of I'm going to buy a 911, and in 3, 4, 5 months time I'll know a whole load of stuff about Porsche 911s, but I won't buy one. So that was my thinking. So the first two things were that about how much performance you need if you're not a track guy and you're or girl and you're driving on the roads, because I don't think I need any more than this, just purely for an enjoyment point of view. And the next bit was you couldn't hesitate, but you can't just hesitate for so long that you've not gone and bought the car that you want and then missed the opportunity. So, okay, and then finally onto what's happening with the 912. So again, work has completely got in the way, general day-to-day life, and I deliberately said to Jack, oh yeah, there's no rush, take your time. So obviously, in fairness to him, he has. But I went to see him last week and I said, oh well, I'll like to come and get it next week, which is this coming week, and I'll do a bit of a swap with him. So I'll leave this one with him so he can change out the coolant expansion tank again with an OEM one, so we don't get the cap exploding off, and that would make me really happy, because then hopefully it'll just be all the mechanically, this car will be sorted, touch wood. But the thing is, so the 912, again, there's a lot of people who've been saying, oh, I wouldn't have done that, there could be all sorts wrong with it, and I know there are all sorts of things wrong with it, but the engine goes, the gearbox works, and it stops when you brake, kind of a fashion. But it's a really bizarre, someone who's worked on it, I don't know what their thinking was, because this should really be 3 videos, shouldn't it? Yeah, I think it should. I might break it down to 3 videos. But there was so if you think about it, the interior is quite nice. It's kind of all together, complete, apart from the back seats are missing. But the dash is good, it's not cracked, all the other stuff is correct. It's shabby, but fair play. It's 54 years old. Bodywork wise, all the right bits are there. It's got Fuchs wheels, it's got period tires, someone spent a decent amount of money on it. The engine's had a decent amount of money spent on it, but a lot of the stuff's just been done in a really shoddy way. And then the bodywork, someone's obviously done the bodywork. I know there's going to be tons of filler on it. I know that the sills might have filler on it, but someone's changed the floor pans. I hope they're welded on and not like riveted on or something. So there's loads of stuff that's good about it, but there's some stuff that's bad about it, and I'm hoping that the good stuff won't outweigh the bad, and the good stuff will allow me to drive it every day. Not every day, I can't drive it every day. There is some bodywork that I'll have to get done at some point. So if I just used it in the summer, it's fine, I don't need to get it done. But the little smuggler's cubby hole at the front, at the bottom it's got holes in it, so it's like it's had standing water in it. So I'd need somebody to cut that out, weld that in eventually. There's a couple of holes right at the back where the back seats are, underneath where the back seats would be, underneath, that probably needs a bit of cutting out, but it's got loads of seam sealer on it and under seal and all sorts, so that would all have to scrape off and get welded up. But again, I don't want to spend loads of money on it. I don't want to go somewhere and someone says, oh well, it needs that. I just want somebody to go, okay, there's a hole, I'll fix that hole, I'll fix it properly, and I'll put some rust protection on it, and it'll be fine. The thing that a lot of people say is, and I think Michael on the Porsche Called web podcast might have talked about it, is that a lot of people say, well, I don't know anybody who knows stuff about Porsches that I can say, come and have a look at it. And again, it's one of those things where if there's an opportunity and you can buy that car, then I don't know. I mean, going back to it, I know Jack, but I don't drag him along to all sorts of stuff, when it comes to buying a car, because he would tell me, he's there to give me bad news, basically. The good news would be there's nothing wrong with that car, and you should buy it. So that doesn't happen very often. But if I go and he says, well, there's a couple of holes here, there's a couple of holes there, but in his head he might be thinking, well, actually, I'd still buy it because it's worth it. But people will go, oh, it's got a bit of rust, where am I going to get that welded, who's going to do that for me, that kind of stuff. Whereas I think it's more to do with how much patina and shabbiness and rust can I handle on a car that I'm buying for a lot of money, and I would like to get that money back at some point. And it would be great if it was if it went up in price as well. And also, most of the time, and I say this about myself, you should be able to tell by driving a car, okay, that doesn't count for me because I didn't drive this one or the 912 when I bought them. So ignore what I did again. But if you go and see a car and you're going to test drive it, you're going to look at it, you can mostly tell if it's structurally sound unless someone's covered it up. And if they've covered it up, you can normally tell as well, because it'll have filler, it'll have sealant, it'll have seam sealer, it'll have under seal, all sorts on it. So you can look at it and go, you know what, I'm going to take a chance, because every time you buy a car, you take a chance unless you're buying a brand new one. So I would, what is going on here? So what I'm saying is, basically, you go and you get a feeling about seeing a car, and you might think, yeah, I really want that one, or I'm not so sure. And when you think I'm not so sure, you just you walk away. But if you go there and go, do you know what, I've got quite a good feeling about this one, and also go with your instinct about the person selling it, I found that to be a really important factor. The problem with what I've done though on the 912 is I bought it from an auction house, which classic car auction house, and so I wasn't meeting the seller, and to be honest, maybe I might not have bought it, because there's so much stuff that didn't make sense. It was registered in 2018 with the DVLA, and there's a receipt for £4,000 spent on the engine in London in 2015. So does that mean someone's been driving it around in the UK for years on Italian registration? I don't know. So it does make me think, but my problem with it is I bought it about a month ago and I've not had it in my possession in all that time. So I'm hoping that in a few days I'll have it. I'll be able to do an interview with Jack about what he thought about it and a rundown of the things that he's done and the things that I should do. Then I'll do a walk around of the car. Someone in a BMW wants a race. This is depressing when people want to do that, because I don't want to do that because it's dangerous. I would, so we'll do a walk around, and any issues that need addressing that I should in the near future sort out, and the things that I can do over a longer period. So that would be ideal. And why is that person stopped? BMW driver that keeps dropping back and then really going up my bum. What was I saying? Yes, so walk around in the car, and what things need doing now, what things can wait, and parts that I'll have to buy, which will be quite expensive. There's a real Porsche premium, so I want to get some steel wheels, and I've seen loads for sale. They're all in America for thousands of dollars. So, you know, it's like $1,500 for 4 completely beaten standard steel wheels from a 912 that need refurbishment, and they need banding because they're the wrong offset. Then I see some over here on eBay and I think, oh, they're reasonably priced. I'll put a bid in on those, and I'm there and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I think I'm going to win those. I need to work out how to go and collect them from God knows where, and it's going, counting down seconds, 3, 2, 1. Oh no, you've missed out. So that was annoying. So someone used some kind of bot to outbid me. Now the other thing is, I think a Porsche 924 steel wheel is the same stud pattern, and it looks exactly okay, it'll have the wrong part number on it, but I think it looks exactly the same, and it has the same stud pattern. Why can't I use that? And they cost like, you know, you can get one for like 65 quid. And it's the right offset, so I wouldn't have to pay a minimum of £50 on top to get it banded. So why don't I just get some of those? So I might need to get hold of, I might buy one for 65 quid and just try it on the car once I get hold of the car. So yeah, I appreciate that I've rambled on and on and on, but I should really have divided that into 3 videos. But this is where I'm also going wrong, because a lot of people who go and get lots of subscribers and have a whole load of views, they do videos about, they just do video after video after video after video, and some of them don't really say anything, and they do weird poses on video kind of front screen. They all do the same one because they're all young, happening, social media, YouTube savvy people, unlike me. So maybe I should think about that. I don't know. No, I don't want to do that. So I'll just do the videos of the content where I've got something to say, but I just need to get hold of that car. There's another lockdown coming, so I'm supposed to be picking it up the day before lockdown happens. So all being well, I will have it in a few days, assuming that I don't get COVID, Jack doesn't get COVID, and anyone that either of us knows doesn't get COVID, so we're in quarantine. So that's what we're looking towards, and yeah, thanks for watching till the end. I can't imagine there's that many people who watch towards the end, but let me know if you have, just out of curiosity.